Honestly, a phenomenal idea because myself, I've got my own festival now, the FP Art Short Film Festival. I've always wanted to get more festivals in Scotland, and when he said he was going to go and do it, and it was going to be a big annual extravaganza, I was like, go for it. Hell yeah, that's what we need. We need more of this. We need more opportunities in Scotland to be able to not just network, but to showcase our talent and help us to be able to get somewhere else. Yeah. And that's what West Lothian does. It definitely does that. It puts Scotland more on the map with the film industry. Like, you've got people come from Estonia and Canada and USA. Amazing. Yeah. Brilliant. You need more people like that. Well, more opportunities like that.
My name's Ailey Thompson, and the film is called Sunday Service. Okay. It's a short documentary about wild swimming and men's mental health. So I met a writer called Anna Deacon at this authors event, and she was telling me about this group, which is called Edinburgh Blue Balls, and I thought it was really funny. The name, she was saying like they focus on men's mental health, and it was sort of bringing these men a sense of community, and I was like, that's really interesting. I've never even really heard of wild swimming very much, let alone these sort of groups. So I thought it'd be a really interesting thing to kind of focus and zone in on.
A friend of mine, Victoria Hawkins, pointed out there was a lot of new festivals around, but she said West Lothian has just started up. Excuse me. West Lothian has just started up, and I should have a look at them because they're concentrating on filmmakers from the Lothians, and I think that's absolutely brilliant. I think that's vital for a successful film industry within the area, because there is so much talent in and around Edinburgh. It just gets overshadowed by the Edinburgh International Film Festival, and yet we've got QMU, we've got Napier, Edinburgh College, all have campuses and work with film and media, and they tend to be under the radar. And having West Lothian Film Festival dedicated to emerging talent from the local area, from Scotland Hills or Armadale to Haddington, I think it's absolutely brilliant.
So it's a student film, okay, and we had to make a film that was 8 minutes long with 3 speaking characters. It had to be a narrative film. It had a few limitations to it, and so I just, as a parent, had the thought of what would influence me so much that it would take me to a place that I would never have gone if that thing didn't happen. So it's a silly thought, but I thought of it through the prism of a parent, okay, and that's where the story came from. And I just saw one image in my head that ended up in the film, but it's from that image, just that one still image, that I created the story out of. And the image is just a young girl standing with a dark figure behind her, closing its hands over her face. That's the image, and so I wrote the story from that one.
So Jacob Tyler is about an army man who just comes back to his hometown after 4 years serving. Bit of a discharge moment, but you kind of see he's a victim of bullying to begin with. So he comes back and he realises that what he once left for a big reason is the same reason why it's still not changed. So it's a very dangerous environment, dangerous town run by a very dangerous gang. So he's because he feels like nothing's getting done about it, he has to kind of essentially take matters into his own hands, but in a very secretive way. So I actually run for Film Pictures, which is one of the sponsors, with Christopher and my partner Lauren. So the three of us have always spoken about film since like 2021 we met you. And Christopher going through education and going setting up the festival. We've seen all the sets from day one of how he was going to make the festival. So that's how we've known about it. We've seen it from the very beginning. The wee baby.
It was forced upon you.
Yes.
My name is Ewan McPherson, and my film is called My First Punk Gig, Derek's Tale.
It's about a young woman who is about to get married, and her father throws a spanner in the works because he is a Catholic priest, and his boss, the cardinal, has just been elected pope, and he has to go over to Rome for the inauguration of the pope the same day as the wedding. And she's not happy about that, and they try to find a way to bring those two disparate problems together. I think reasonably successful in the end.
Sure, it's part of a series, or at least I'm hoping to make it a series, really exploring people's first punk gigs, which sounds like quite a basic concept. However, it has served as a starting off point for people to kind of explore how they feel about punk, how punk has inspired them, and how it affects them today. And also, as well, just to reflect back on the time that they were in the punk scene during the late 70s.
So my name is Scott Kyle, and the film is called It's Not Show Friends, It's Show Business. So the film essentially tells the story of, I don't know if anyone's heard the play called Singing I'm Not a Billy, He's a Tim. Well, the short version of that, I found that play in a library almost 2 decades ago, and over a course of 5 years we built the biggest show in Scotland. I was able to pay off my mum's mortgage and pay off all our council tax debt, and it was life-changing for me. I also got connected with family that I'd never met before, because when my name went on the poster, my dad's side of the family, my dad had left when I was younger, we never seen him. They seen the poster and got in touch. So all of this magic all evolves onto one night in my life, which was in April 2011. Was it 2011? Yeah, April 2011, and we were at the SECC in Glasgow performing to 3,000 people. So we'd just come off stage taking a bow after having 3 standing ovations, and I went backstage to start loading the van. The glitz and glamour of it, you've still got to load the van even if you've been the star of the show earlier on, and that was when the writer of the play, Des Dillon, came up to me and said that it's incredible what you've done with the show, Scott, taking it from nothing, just lying in a draw, to the biggest show in Scotland. He said, so what I'm about to say to you is not personal. He said, but I'm going to take the rights to the show and I'm going to do it myself. So essentially that night, Des took my business off me, but it was his play, so he wasn't able to do it. We didn't have a long-term contract to say that he shouldn't, so in many ways it was a blessing to have the show for the 5 years, but it was a tough moment to get told that it was all over. And then I had to go, after the show, I had to go upstairs to the room where my new family were, and all my friends and family were, and pretend that everything was alright. So I think I did more acting after the show than I did on the stage that night. So yeah, that's what the short film's about. So it's a 10-minute, and it tells you the story of all that encompassed into an animation. So.
My name is Robin de Bern-Ryden, and I've got 2 projects nominated. We've got Miss Walker, which is a TV concept about 3 female actors that basically are in the film industry, but it's focused more on behind the scenes. And basically with the TV concept, we're moving it into a series called Caledonia Dreamin', where we want to focus more on the Me Too movement and stuff like that, really. But the concept is basically just to establish these characters and to basically get people interested in what could happen next. So yeah, that's that in a nutshell. And then our other project is Fatherhood, which is a short script about a young guy called Lee who is about to be a young father. He works in a supermarket, and yeah, he's never really had a relationship with his own father because he left when he was a young boy. And basically, in a nutshell, he come across as his own father by the end of it, and he's not what he expected his father to be. So yeah.
You know, when you see the film, it's up to the audience what they believe it is. I'm not trying to spoon feed that. I've got my own assumption, or I like identification of what it is, but different people take it differently. And the film has been seen by a few people, and everyone comes to me with a slightly different explanation for what that could be, which is delicious, you know. So yes, but it's kind of that, you know, you could probably call it, in one of the cases, you could call it survivor guilt. What does that do to you? You know, that drives people to go places that they might not have gone, even if they're unguilty of the things they think they've done. You know, so it's deep stuff, I know, but I had to color within the lines. They gave us a brief. We had to create the film within that brief, and that's what the film is. You know, if I was able to color out of the lines, I would have probably gone many different places with it. But I'm very happy for what it is and where it went. So yeah, man, that's a very brief description, as I said. No, it's not.
So it's a very personal kind of story, to say the least, because I was a bully victim myself, and it kind of all built up from that situation. You know, like when I was younger, I always kind of felt like I just wish I had this kind of power to kind of stop a few things and stop things happening to myself and other people. But it's like a kind of hate letter to like kind of the intentional evil, but a love letter to, you know, to kind of for people to combat that situation as well. So, so I was looking on Film Freeway, and I kind of got introduced along the way. So being my actual first ever film, I got mentioned quite a few times with people like, you should enter these festivals and try and get your, you know, film out there. And West Lothian came up from like friends of mine, and Christopher here obviously set himself for me to enter in the first place, which was really good. He was very communicative about it, and I just loved the idea since day one. So I'm glad I'm humbled to get accepted as well.
So I always find this one quite hard, because the film doesn't really so much have a plot as it's a day in the life of our hero Jim, who meets a lot of people throughout the day that reflect his own challenges back to him, and he has basically a journey of emotional self-discovery throughout his day.
What's been the inspiration behind that?
It was a long journey to make the film up. Basically just conversations in the pub with your last guest, Scott Kyle. And we basically were talking about improv something, and we were talking about starting an improv, getting an improv show together. And I went home and started writing something down, and Morning Jim came out. I initially wrote it for me to play Jim, but I couldn't stick the ending. And then I woke up one morning with the final speech in my head, and I immediately went out and wrote the final speech into the script. And then that's me, I had the final version of the script, and I sat and I read it. And I'm sitting in my wife's egg chair reading the script, and John's voice is coming out of my head when Jim's speaking, and I'm like, oh, I've just written a film for John. And so I had to phone John up and say, listen, John, I've written a film, and you're clearly the star. So would you be interested in doing it? So it literally was just a rolling development from living life.
There's a bit of a story here. I returned to education after lockdown. I decided to do a degree in film, and for the first year project, I decided to do a first episode of my first punk gig. And it was during that process, during that coursework, I began to fall in love with the documentary process. I've also always been a fan of music as well, and I love hearing stories about people's experiences on the punk scene. Punk has just been a sort of, fantastic and significant point of music for you take into account people's views and experiences and outlook on life were all of a sudden 100% changed.
But good marketing and good work and good presentation, simple is often what works, and people just don't make that effort. It's like everything else. If you put in the hard work to things, like it looks lucky. It's like, how did he get so lucky? How did he manage to make this brilliant, giant-looking festival that everybody's talking about? It's like, well, I just got lucky with hours and hours and hours of hard work in a dark room by myself, because that's how success happens. You work quietly, like you're like a duck. You look like you're just floating along, but your legs are going like that under the surface. And that energy comes across really strongly in everything that West Lothian is doing.
To be fair, I did think it was a big festival and it had been done before. I was quite surprised to think that it was the first one because I'd seen it promoted so well. I'd been seeing it everywhere, to be fair. So I thought it was well established. So there we go.
Thank you.
You're right to look professional.
having the energy coming out of it generates excitement, and it's generated a lot of excitement in the Glasgow film community.
Yeah.
A lot of people that I am industry friends with on various social media platforms, you see them getting excited about this way in a way that they don't about other festivals. And part of that is that it's local, but part of that is that it's local and it's big. And that's what the size of something which is something we really need in this country. It's something with a bit of pizzazz to it. And I think a lot of the film festivals, especially the Scottish ones, are very much like, here's our film festival, hope you enjoy it. And so for somebody to be like, look at what we've got going on, look at what all the excitement that we're making, and we're having like the full festival, we're having the big awards show, like this is something we could really use here. And so it's like there's a huge gap in the market where West Lothian can just slip in and click into place.